How's it going, everybody? It is football season 2021. Scott Spreitzer here, Doug Upstone. We are DocSports.com, and we're talking Dallas Cowboys 2021 over-under wins total, sitting at 9.5 for the most part. I did see a book or two less than 9.5 wins on the board the morning of recording this video, and the juice no longer overwhelmingly on the over. Has a little bit something to do probably with that Dak Prescott shoulder strain, but we'll talk about that in a bit. I wanted to mention a little bit of advice before we jump into this. When you play a wins total on a football team, you're talking potentially a month or more before the season begins. Don't prejudice yourself as far as the spread is concerned on your over-under wins total bet when you jump into the first couple or three games of the season, because obviously the point spread is the almighty equalizer. And I have to tell people that a lot of times when you do start thinking that, let's just say the Dallas Cowboys, I think they're going to win 12 games, or I think they're going to win 6 games. Well, after you make that bet, kind of push that aside a little bit when it comes to the point spread in the early portion of the season. Otherwise, you can find yourself being wrong 2 or 3 times on your initial handicap rather than once. It's just a little bit of advice. Doug, I got to tell you, I'm going to go right to you here. Everyone's talking about this Dallas offense and how good it's going to be. Dak Prescott, if he's healthy, I mentioned he's got the shoulder strain. You've got a good offensive line. Zeke Elliott, best shape of his life, he says. Solid talent for Dak to throw to for the most part. But man, Upstone, that defense was horrible last year. And I'm not so sure it's going to be a ton better in 2021.
Yeah, before I answer your question specifically there, Scott, I'm going to piggyback on what you said, is that, you're absolutely right about having to do, to not have it interfere with your thought process. And to your point is you don't get paid to the end of the season, okay, if you're right. So why have it influence your season right from the start? The point spread is completely different than the win total. So just take it week by week. Okay. So I think that is absolutely fantastic advice, to give. And Scott, I know you'll talk about this in a second, but, I know last year you absolutely killed it at the end of the season last year in football in general. And myself in the NFL didn't do great week 1, didn't do great week 17, but in between, 34 and 24 at up 5,800 units. Okay, so I had a very, very good and consistent season. Okay, other than the bookends. So I know, Scott, it's the same thing for you. And as soon as I quit, shut my mouth here and talking about the Dallas Cowboys, you can let people know how well you did with them. But last year, anything that could go wrong with the Cowboys did. Okay, and so for those that are Cowboy haters, it was a fantastic season. And I'm not a Cowboy hater, but boy, oh boy, I know people that are, and boy, they were glowing. Okay, 6-10. McCarthy looked like a buffoon. Okay, as their head coach, everything went wrong. Offensively, though, Scott, agreed. Dak Prescott back. I think I don't think this is a huge issue with his shoulder. At least for their standpoint, I hope not. So the offense looks like it's going to be electric. Okay, a lot of points. But defensively, it was the worst defense in team history. Okay, so we're going back to 1960. We're not talking about just something around the block or even the worst this century, which would be bad enough. So now they're going to a 4-3 with a new defensive coordinator, okay? And that makes sense from the standpoint is that's where their best talent is going to be, is in the defensive line to where they can utilize that. Their linebackers, they have some guys with speed, but Jalen Smith, the one that signed the huge contract going into the 2020 season, he was awful last year. There's no way to sugarcoat that. He was terrible. He played like somebody who was very satisfied with a large contract. He's going to have to come back because he's their main guy in the center of everything they do. Secondary, I still see problems on this team, on that side of the ball. For them, they have road games at Tampa Bay, at the Chargers, at New England, at Kansas City. And Scott, as you know, historically, the Dallas at best is a so-so home team, okay, straight up or against the spread. I look at Jerry Jones' team. I think they win their division. I think they're going to be 9-8, okay, because the division is so weak, and that'll be good enough. But for my pick here, I'm taking the under 9.5 with the Cowboys. Scott, now please let the betting masses know how well you did last year.
First of all, I think Washington is going to give them a run for their money. We'll talk about that in a different video when it comes to the division. Oh, yeah. Look what just popped up. I always like to show this. Of course, what do you win them for if you can't talk about them? Hey, listen, the NFL has been my baby, and there's not a lot of people who will echo that sentiment. And we're talking for about a decade now. The last 616 combined NFL college football plays for me, 58% against the spread. And it's not like one's 65%, one's 52%. We're 58% in both of those leagues, both NFL and college football, over 600 plays. And of course, you can check that out on my homepage at DocSports.com. This little puppy, that was the second Las Vegas OV Invitational that I won in back-to-back tournaments. That was 2 years ago. Last year, I finished second in the LVOV Invitational. What it is just like those super contests, 5 NFL plays against the spread per week. We hit 60% when we won it. Then we also have a top 20 in the Westgate Super Contest where we hit 64.5% and turned a $1,500 entry into about $25,000. That was a couple of years ago. And yes, my money will be where my mouth is. I will be in all these tournaments again. We'll talk about them on videos like we've done in the past. I really believe that you should put your money where your mouth is, and we certainly will do so again. So listen, I love college and pro football. I love handicapping it. And about 10 years ago, I got to tell people real quickly, I went from being probably a 70% matchup handicapper. Not that I was hitting 70%, but that 70% of my handicap was matchups. Now it's about 25% in the NFL and 75% situational. That's made a huge difference, and we've been able to win tournaments ever since. So we'll continue to handicap it that way, and if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. So listen, check out Doug's plays, my plays, everybody's plays on the roster at DocSports.com, starting in preseason right through the regular season and into the playoffs. I also finished out last year, Doug, 20-6, my last 26 plays, and we both gained around $5,700, $5,800 to finish up the season. So we're both going to go into this season on nice runs. That's me knocking on wood to say, let's keep it going. All right, listen, back to Dallas. McCarthy's first Packers team was not too hot, but he won 11 games the very next season with Green Bay. The great news for Dallas fans is that Mike Nolan, calling plays on defense, is long gone. I don't think he's allowed in the state of Texas anymore. He lasted 1 year as defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn is now the defensive coordinator. Don't pay a ton of attention to what he did in Atlanta, although I think he did an okay job for the most part. But his thing is DC, defensive coordinator. When he was DC of the Seattle Seahawks, they went 25-7, and we all know how good that defense was. I'm not going to say there's going to be an immediate huge improvement, and this team's all of a sudden going to be a Super Bowl contender. I think over the course of time, they're going to be very happy that Dan Quinn is calling the shots on defense. Really worried about Dak Prescott, Doug, because he's already got a shoulder situation, a shoulder strain. The other quarterbacks on the roster, Ben DiNucci, Garrett Gilbert, Cooper Rush, and Glenn Carano. Kidding about the last one. I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. But anyway, there's not a whole lot to back up Dak Prescott. And I'll say this, making a line for a 17 Cowboys game schedule right now, I'd have them favored in 10 games. However, and this is if Dak Prescott is healthy. However, I would make them a favorite of 2 or less in 3 of those games. You mentioned they do play a weak division. I think Washington is going to give them a run for their money. Add it up, and I believe Dallas is going to win less than 10 games. That means 9 or fewer. Wins total's 9.5. Doug and I in agreement. And I know people like to see us disagree and go back and forth, but we're in agreement on the under with the Dallas Cowboys, Doug.
Yeah, I mean, just, I don't like to always do videos or anything just to agree with people all the time, but, the facts are the facts in terms of how I'm interpreting, how you're interpreting them. And as you have said before, we don't talk before we do
right.
these. We just, this is what we're thinking about, something like that. So there's nothing in here. So we still have time this month on some win totals to go do a little action here, going against each other. So I think we'll get it done. It just, in this case, in these 2 cases rather, just didn't happen. So good to go. I still think Dallas, I think they'll win the division. And in some way, Scott, to your point, like you said, if Prescott's healthy, Cowboys could be 9-8, but actually be, if the defense improves even more than what we're thinking they could do, they could be a dangerous playoff team. I'm not saying they're going to the NFC Championship, but they could win their first game, and they might give somebody a big scare in a second game.
Yeah, I agree. If Dak Prescott stays healthy, if the defense catches on to what Dan Quinn is preaching earlier than expected, this team could do some damage. There's no doubt about it. As of right now, we're both looking at under 9.5 wins. Check out that free $60 account. You click on the link below this video. And if you're not yet a member at DocSports.com, you get a free $60 account, which you can use on any of our daily packages. Doug's, mine, anybody else on the roster at DocSports.com. As you can see, we're ready, man. Let's kick off. Let's blow that opening whistle and let's get it going. He's Doug Upstone. I'm Scott Spreitzer. We are DocSports.com. Let's put him in the win column.